let's talk about power factor. Power factor can be a very intimidating topic, and rightfully so. You know, if you get online and you read about it, you just find pages and pages and pages of nerd talk, and we don't need that. Now, I respect it. I think it's awesome, but it's just too much, okay? Let's simplify it way down so we can get our hands on it. Let's make a graphic so we can look at something and make sense of it. And let's just talk about it in just everyday down-to-earth terms. So, most people in the HVAC world know that watts is just volts times amps, right? No. Not as many of them know that you need to add power factor to the equation. If all you want to do is multiply volts and amps, then you're going to end up with something called VA, and you'll see transformers rated in that. That's just volt amps. But watts is actually volts times amps times power factor. Now, power factor, a perfect power factor is 1.0. And then it goes down from there. You can have any number that's smaller than 1 as a power factor. And the lower it goes, the worse the power factor is. Okay, so on a resistive load, because our power factor is 1, resistive loads have a power factor of 1. To get the watts, we're really just multiplying volts times amps. Because power factor is 1, we don't need to adjust this at all, right? It's just volts times amps. If we're looking at the wattage on a motor and the power factor is 0.75, we're going to take volts times amps, and then we're going to decrease that value down to 75% of what it would be if the power factor is 1. So a reduced power factor reduces the final wattage that you calculate. And I think when we look at that graphically, it'll make sense why. So let me get you set up here. And let's just talk about why a resistive load has a power factor of 1. Now, I know we're talking about AC here, but I'm going to simplify it by just talking about it kind of like it's DC, so don't don't get too annoyed by that. In a resistive load circuit, our electricity is just going around. Now, I know it's AC, it's oscillating, but you know what I'm saying. It's just going around. It's just doing its thing. There's nothing weird happening to it. It's just going around like normal. But with an inductive load or a capacitive load, weird things happen. And the best analogy that I have for that is like, imagine water just coming out of a spigot. Okay, nothing weird's happening, it's just coming out of that spigot. Okay, but if you've ever seen these at a water park, you have a real high spigot and you've got a bucket down here and the water's just going into the bucket. So here's our bucket, it's filling up with water, and then boom, it dumps. Fills, dumps, fills, dumps. So you have this kind of weird oscillation going on that's sort of changing the timing. You're not having just a nice little flow now where the timing is not being affected. You are having some kind of weird timing to all of this, right? So in a resistive load, the timing of the current exactly matches the timing of the voltage. On the screen here, I have voltage graphed as blue, and I have current graphed as pink. And I just lifted it up there so you could see it. You can see they're in time with each other. So my x-axis down here is time, and my y-axis is volts. All right. So I will put a marker at 0 so we can easily see where 0 is. And you'll notice with this waveform, I have positive values and negative values. So positive voltage, negative voltage, positive voltage, negative voltage. And that's why AC is oscillating in the circuit. Anyways, this is a resistive load. We're going to calculate the wattage by just multiplying volts times amps. So I'm going to do that now with the math channel. Volts times amps. There we go. So my black channel now is watts. You can see that here, watts. And because I have both of my waveforms are at 2, 2 times 2 is 4, so you see my peaks are at 4. The cool thing though is that even though these peaks are negative, I still have a positive wattage because I still have power being consumed by the load even when the voltage is negative. It's just that it's kind of oscillating the other way. Anyways, the main point is that this is a really nice wattage waveform. It's all positive. There's nothing weird going on. That's a resistive load. Now, if I create a capacitive load or inductive load, let's do that now. Good Lord. Okay, hang on a second. Let's, no, right there. So what I did is I just offset my current from my voltage. Let me get a better pointer here. So now this would be a very bad power factor, by the way. Now my current is leading or lagging my voltage pretty badly. And you'll look and you'll see that now we only have a small little bit of positive wattage. The rest of it is all negative. So what the heck does that mean? What is negative wattage? Well, in this case, it would just mean that the load, instead of taking in power from the utility company, it's actually returning power to the utility company, maybe by a magnetic field collapsing or something like that. But anyways, it's putting power out. And that's why utility companies don't like bad power factors in factories. They don't want that kind of mess. They want the factory to just consume positive wattage. So this would be an extremely bad power factor. But you can see how when we offset these, we don't get very nice positive numbers anymore. So when we multiply this now, this is a positive and a negative. Now we just get an extreme negative number. Well, I know this is a little bit crude, and it may be a video that I can refine over the years and maybe make a little more technically accurate. But I think as far as just wrapping your head around it, getting your hands on it, kind of getting an idea of why it's so bad for the voltage and current to lag each other or be out of timing, I think this is good enough for that. So I hope that helps. After looking at what I had filmed, I decided that I might want to do kind of a little follow-up and explain some things just a little bit better. The problem was I had showed on the screen such a bad power factor like this one that I have here that it was really hard to, I think, conceptualize what a normal motor power factor really is. So this one is just like the other one, horribly bad, like power factor of 0. You could see my current and voltage are just completely out of sync from each other, just completely phase shifted. And I'm actually consuming no wattage. I'm sending it all back to the power company. Well, let me try and create a more normal power factor, and then we can talk about it. Okay, here's a more normal power factor. You can see that although I have some shift, it's not a complete out of phase shift. We just have current lagging voltage, okay? So I am consuming some power, but I'm also sending some back. Well, remember that on a resistive load, when these are completely in sync, remember I was all the way up here at 4. Now look at how my wattage has dropped down. And that's why in the Watts equation, you need some decimal number to drop down the total that you get from multiplying volts and amps. In this case, I'm not exactly sure what that number would be. Whereas if here's a power factor of 100%, this might be power factor 0.75, 75%. So we are effectively using 75% of what we would be using if this was a resistive load.